The sky above the capital city of Lyceria was a soft silver color, glowing with energy fields that protected the royal palace. Tall crystal towers reflected the light of distant stars, showing the power and pride of the Lyceri people. At the center of it all stood Queen Solara, ruler of Lyceria, known across many systems for her sharp mind and unbreakable will. Queen Solara believed strength was everything. Strength of mind, strength of body, strength of bloodline. To her, a ruler who showed hesitation or kindness without control was weak, and weakness had no place in leadership. She had ruled for decades, expanding Lyceri influence through intelligence, strategy, and calculated decisions. Many admired her. Many feared her. None dared to openly challenge her, none except, perhaps, her own daughter. Princess Elira stood quietly at the edge of the Grand Council chamber. She was tall and elegant like all Lyceri, with pale skin that shimmered faintly and eyes that reflected soft violet light. But unlike the sharp, commanding presence of her mother, Elira carried a calm and gentle aura. She listened more than she spoke. She felt deeply. And that, in Queen Solara's eyes, was a flaw. The council chamber buzzed with low telepathic murmurs as advisors discussed reports from distant star systems. Elira tried to focus, but she could feel her mother's growing frustration. The queen's emotions were powerful, even without direct telepathic projection. "The reports are clear," Queen Solara said, her voice echoing through the chamber. "Our allies grow complacent. Our rivals grow bold. We need stronger bonds." Ayamata Grace, an elder advisor, stepped forward carefully. "Your Majesty, our current alliances are stable. There is no immediate threat." "Stability is an illusion," Solara replied coldly. "Only constant growth ensures survival." Her gaze shifted, slowly, deliberately, until it landed on Elira. Elira felt her chest tighten. "For years," Solara continued, "my daughter has failed to show the strength expected of a Lyceri heir. She avoids competition. She questions authority. She seeks harmony where dominance is required." The council fell silent. Elira took a small step forward. "Mother, seeking understanding does not mean weakness," she said softly. "It means—" "Enough," Solara snapped. "You speak of ideals while others prepare to take what we have built." Elira lowered her gaze, not out of submission, but sadness. Queen Solara turned back to the council. "There is a solution. One that will either strengthen my bloodline or remove doubt entirely." The advisors exchanged uneasy glances. "We have studied humans," Solara continued, "a primitive species by our standards, limited telepathic ability, inferior technology, but physically resilient, emotionally stubborn. They survive conditions that would break most species." One advisor spoke up, shocked. "Your Majesty, humans." "Yes," Solara said. "They are unpredictable, durable, hard to control. Exactly what my daughter lacks." Elira's eyes widened. "Mother, what are you saying?" Queen Solara faced her fully now. "You will marry a human." The words felt unreal, like a sudden void opening beneath Elira's feet. "A political bond," Elira asked quietly. "With a species we barely know?" "You will learn," Solara replied. "And through this union, you will either grow stronger or prove my fears correct." The council erupted into protest. "This is unprecedented," one advisor argued. "It could be dangerous, culturally unstable." Solara raised a single hand, silencing them all. "My decision is final." Elira's voice trembled. "Do I have a choice?" For the first time, Solara hesitated. Just for a fraction of a second. Then her expression hardened. "No." Days passed like a blur. Elira prepared to leave Lyceria, her home, her world. Servants packed her belongings, though she needed little. Lyceri technology could create almost anything she required. What weighed on her was not what she was leaving behind, but what she was being sent toward. She stood on the launch platform, looking back at the palace one last time. Queen Solara stood at a distance, surrounded by guards and advisors, her expression unreadable. Illyra wanted her mother to say something. Anything. A word of reassurance. A sign of care. None came. The transport ship lifted silently into the sky, carrying Illyra away from everything she had known. The journey to Earth took weeks through folded space corridors. Illyra spent much of that time alone, studying human culture through data files. Humans were strange. They argued often. They failed often, yet they continued forward with determination that surprised her. They valued family deeply. They formed bonds not through obligation, but choice. That idea both comforted and frightened her. When the ship finally arrived in Earth's orbit, Illyra felt a nervous calm settle over her. The planet below was vibrant, full of blue oceans and green land. Alive in a way Lyceria felt controlled and precise. She was escorted to a secure diplomatic facility, where representatives of Earth waited. The humans looked different from the images she had seen. Less polished, more expressive, and among them stood one man, Marcus Hale. He was not dressed like a soldier or a noble. He wore simple clothing, his posture straight but relaxed. His eyes held curiosity rather than fear. "This is her?" Marcus asked quietly, glancing at the officials beside him. Illyra stepped forward. "I am Princess Illyra of Lyceria," she said, her voice steady. "I believe we are to be joined." Marcus studied her for a moment, then nodded. "I'm Marcus. And yeah, I guess we are." There was no bow, no ceremony, no display of dominance. Instead, Marcus offered his hand. Illyra hesitated. Physical contact without formality was unusual for Lyceri. Slowly, she placed her hand in his. His grip was warm, firm, but gentle. "We didn't exactly get a vote in this," Marcus said honestly. "But I promise you one thing." "What is that?" Illyra asked. "I won't treat you like a tool or a test," he replied. "Whatever this is, we face it together." Something in his voice eased the tightness in her chest. Far away, on Lyceria, Queen Solara watched the live feed. She observed her daughter standing beside the human, noting Illyra's calm posture, her composed expression. "Let us see," Solara whispered to herself. "If weakness survives among humans." She turned away, convinced she had made a necessary choice. She did not yet understand that she had just set into motion a future that would challenge everything she believed about strength, power, and humanity. Illyra's first weeks on Earth felt like standing in the middle of a moving storm. Everything was loud, fast, and full of emotion. Humans spoke with their voices more than their minds, and their faces showed feelings clearly. For someone raised among careful thoughts and controlled expressions, it was overwhelming. Marcus lived in a modest city near the coast. Tall buildings surrounded his home, but beyond them, the ocean stretched wide and open. Illyra found herself drawn to it. The water moved freely, never still, never perfectly controlled. It reminded her of humans themselves. At first, their daily life was awkward. They shared the same space but kept a polite distance. Marcus wanted to respect her boundaries, unsure how Lyceri customs worked. Illyra, in turn, observed him closely, trying to understand this human she had been forced to marry. Marcus woke early every morning. He exercised, prepared his own food, and checked messages from his work. He worked as an engineer, helping design systems that improved disaster response and energy use. Illyra noticed that his technology was simple compared to Lyceri standards, but the ideas behind it were clever and flexible. One morning, as Illyra watched him repair a small machine that had stopped working, she finally spoke. "Why do you fix it yourself?" she asked. "You could replace it." Marcus looked up, surprised. "Because it still has value," he said. "If something breaks, it doesn't mean it's useless." The words stayed with her. On Lyceria, broken systems were often discarded. Efficiency mattered more than sentiment. But humans seemed to care about effort, about trying again even when failure was likely. Illyra struggled with simple human tasks at first. Earth gravity felt heavy on her body. Human food tasted strange, full of strong flavors. She tired easily and felt embarrassed when she could not keep up physically. One evening, after attempting to help Marcus carry supplies and failing, Elira sat quietly, her shoulders slumped. "I am slowing you down," she said softly. "My mother was right. I am weak." Marcus stopped and turned to her. "Hey," he said, his voice calm but firm. "Strength isn't just muscles or endurance. On my world it is," Elira replied. "Those who cannot endure are not chosen to lead." Marcus thought for a moment. "On Earth, some of our strongest people are the ones who keep going even when they're scared," he said. "Or the ones who help others stand back up." Elira looked at him, unsure how to respond. Over time, Marcus encouraged her to explore Earth at her own pace. They walked through parks, markets, and quiet streets. Elira observed families laughing together, strangers helping one another without obligation, and people standing up to authority when they believed it was wrong. These actions confused her. "Why do humans argue with their leaders?" she asked one day. Marcus smiled slightly. "Because leaders aren't perfect," he said, "and power should be questioned." That idea was dangerous on Lyceria. Slowly, Elira began to change. She trained her body to adapt to Earth's gravity, pushing herself a little more each day. Marcus helped, but never forced her. When she failed, he encouraged her. When she succeeded, he celebrated with her. She also began to share her own knowledge. Elira explained Lyceria energy systems and advanced materials. Marcus listened carefully, asking questions, not trying to dominate the conversation. Together, they started combining ideas, creating small innovations neither could have achieved alone. Their relationship shifted from obligation to partnership. At night, they talked about their worlds, about fears, about expectations placed upon them. "My mother believes love makes leaders weak," Elira said one evening as they sat overlooking the ocean. Marcus shook his head. "Love is what gives people something worth protecting," he replied. Elira felt something warm settle in her chest. She had never thought of it that way. Back on Lyceria, Queen Solara watched reports with growing irritation. Elira was supposed to struggle, to fail, to return broken or prove unworthy. Instead, the data showed adaptation, emotional stability, intellectual growth. "She is surviving," Solara muttered. "But survival is not strength." Then came the first true test. A powerful storm struck the coastal region where Marcus lived. Human weather systems warned of danger, but the storm intensified beyond predictions. Flooding threatened the city. Power grids failed. Panic spread. Elira watched the chaos unfold with wide eyes. "Why do they not evacuate earlier?" she asked. "Not everyone can," Marcus said, already preparing to leave. "And some won't." He joined emergency response teams, helping reinforce shelters and restore power where possible. Elira insisted on helping, even though Marcus worried for her safety. "I will not hide," she said firmly. Out in the storm, Elira saw humans at their most vulnerable. Homes destroyed. People afraid. Yet she also saw courage. Volunteers risked themselves for strangers. People shared food and warmth without being asked. When a building partially collapsed, trapping several people inside, Elira acted without thinking. Using her knowledge of Lyceria materials and human tools, she helped stabilize the structure long enough for rescue teams to pull survivors free. Her body ached. Her mind burned with effort. But she did not stop. When the storm finally passed, the city stood damaged but alive. Marcus found Elira sitting on the steps of a shelter, exhausted and soaked. "You were incredible," he said quietly. Elira looked at her hands, trembling slightly. "I was afraid the entire time," she admitted. Marcus smiled. So was everyone else. News of Elira's actions spread quickly. Humans were curious about the alien princess who worked alongside them, who listened, who cared. They did not see weakness. They saw compassion and resolve. Queen Solara watched the footage in silence. Elira, once dismissed as fragile, stood among humans, not as a burden, but as a leader in her own way. And for the first time since making her decision, Queen Solara felt something unfamiliar tighten in her chest. Doubt. The first warning came without drama. No explosions, no loud alarms, just a quiet message sent across deep space, decoded by Lyseri sensors and human listening stations at the same time. It spoke of approach, of claim, of inevitable conquest. The alien force called itself the Varkul Collective. They were ancient, vast, and efficient. They moved from system to system, taking resources and leaving hollow worlds behind. Resistance usually ended quickly. Those who survived learned to obey. On Lyceria, the High Council gathered in emergency session. Queen Solara stood at the center, her posture rigid, her expression sharp. For the first time in many years, uncertainty rippled through the chamber. The Varkul fleet will reach our borders within months, an advisor reported. Our defenses are strong, but their numbers are greater. Solara folded her hands behind her back. We will not yield, she said. Prepare the fleets, but deep down, she knew this enemy was different. Lyseri's strategy relied on prediction, control, and overwhelming force. The Varkul were adaptive, learning from every encounter. On Earth, Elira felt the shift before the official message arrived. Her connection to Lyseri networks still existed. Faint, but alive. When the transmission reached her, she stood very still. They are coming, she said quietly. Marcus looked at her. Who? Elira met his eyes. An enemy my people may not be able to stop alone. Human leaders reacted with concern but also caution. The Varkul were unknown. Committing to a distant war was no small decision. But Elira spoke to them, not as a princess demanding aid, but as someone who understood fear, loss, and responsibility. The Varkul expect obedience, she said during a global conference. They believe order is the same as strength. Humans know that survival often comes from creativity. Some doubted her. Others listened. When Marcus presented combined human-Lyseri tactical ideas using unpredictability, decentralized command, and rapid adaptation, interest grew. These were things humans had learned through centuries of conflict and disaster. A joint task force was formed. Elira did not stay behind. She traveled back to Lyceria for the first time since her exile. The planet looked the same, shining and precise, but it felt different to her now. Smaller, less complete. Queen Solara awaited her in the palace hall. They stood facing each other, mother and daughter, separated by years of silence. You have changed, Solara said at last. Yes, Elira replied. I had to. There was no time for weakness, Solara said. Elira shook her head gently. There was no room for growth. The conversation ended there. Unfinished, but something had shifted. The combined fleet assembled near Lyserian space. Human ships looked rough compared to Lyseri vessels. Less elegant, but built with layers of redundancy. Systems could fail and still function. Crews could improvise. When the Varkul arrived, they came in overwhelming numbers. The first clash was brutal. Lyseri fleets followed traditional formations, delivering precise strikes. The Varkul adapted quickly, shifting shields and countering patterns. Human commanders changed tactics mid-battle. They split formations, used feints, sacrificed smaller advantages to gain larger ones. Lyseri officers hesitated at first, unused to chaos. Elira moved between command centers, translating not just language, but philosophy. They are not retreating, she explained. They are creating uncertainty. Slowly, the tide shifted. The Varkul struggled against strategies that could not be predicted. When one human ship lost power, its crew rerouted energy manually, using methods considered outdated but reliable. When Lyseri systems were compromised, humans adapted them on the fly. Elira coordinated efforts, her calm presence steadying both sides. She did not command through fear or authority, but through trust. At a critical moment, the Varkul launched a massive assault aimed directly at Lyseria's core. The Queen's flagship took heavy damage. Systems failed. Panic spread. Elira reached the command channel. "Open external controls," she said. "That would expose the ship," an officer protested. "Do it," Solara ordered, her voice tight. Elira guided a risky maneuver, combining human manual piloting with Lyseri energy bursts. The flagship survived, barely, and the Varkul assault faltered. The battle raged for days. Losses mounted, but the combined force held. Finally, the Varkul withdrew. Not defeated completely, but forced to retreat and reconsider. It was something they had rarely done. Cheers echoed across ships and stations. On Lyceria, the people watched in stunned silence as victory was declared. Humans, once dismissed as primitive, had stood alongside them as equals. Queen Solara stood alone in her private chamber afterward, staring at the stars. She replayed the battle, Elira's voice calm amid chaos. Her daughter had not broken. She had become something stronger than Solara ever planned. And the Queen knew, deep within herself, that without humans, and without Elira's so-called weakness, Lyceria would have fallen. The war was not over, but the future had changed. The stars above Lyceria felt quieter after the battle. The great energy shields still glowed around the planet, but their light now carried marks of repair rather than pride. Ships moved carefully through space, carrying the wounded home, carrying stories that would be told for generations. Elira stood on a high balcony of the royal palace, looking out over the city she once believed she had lost forever. The air felt familiar, yet she herself felt different. Earth had changed her. Humans had changed her, and through her, Lyceria had begun to change as well. Behind her, soft footsteps approached. Queen Solara stopped a short distance away. For a long moment, neither spoke. "You saved this world," Solara said at last. Elira turned slowly. "Many saved it," she replied. "Humans, Lyseri, all of us together." Solara studied her daughter's face, searching for hesitation, for doubt. She found none. Elira's calm was no longer fragile. It was strong, steady, earned. "I believed I was protecting our future," Solara said. "I believed control was the only way." Elira nodded. "You protected what you understood. And I was wrong," Solara said quietly. The words hung in the air, heavy and rare. A Lyseri queen admitting error was almost unheard of. Solara lowered her gaze, something she had not done in front of anyone in decades. "I called you weak," she continued. "I believed forcing you into hardship would either harden you or break you." Elira felt a gentle ache in her chest, but no anger. "It hurt," she said honestly, "but it also showed me a world where strength grows through trust, not fear." Solara closed her eyes for a brief moment. When she opened them, there was regret there. Deep and unhidden. "I sent you away because I did not know how to understand you," Solara admitted. "And in doing so, I nearly lost everything." Elira stepped closer. "You did not lose me," she said. "But I cannot be who I was." Solara gave a small, slow nod. "I see that now." News spread quickly through Lyceria. The Queen publicly acknowledged the alliance with humanity, no longer as a temporary measure, but as a lasting bond. Human diplomats walked openly through Lycerian halls. Cultural exchanges began. Scientists worked together. Soldiers trained together. There was resistance, of course. Pride did not fade easily. Some Lyseri still believed humans were inferior. Others feared change more than enemies. Elira addressed the people directly. "We survived because we adapted," she said in a broadcast heard across the planet. "We survived because we trusted those different from us. Strength is not purity. Strength is cooperation." Many listened. On Earth, Marcus watched the transmission with quiet pride. He had returned home after the battle, but his connection to Elira remained strong. Their bond had grown naturally, without force or expectation. When Elira invited him to Lyceria, he came without hesitation. Walking beside him through the palace corridors, Illyra noticed how people reacted. Some stared. Some bowed. Some smiled. Marcus leaned toward her. "Your world's impressive," he said softly. Illyra smiled. "So is yours." They met Solara together. The queen studied Marcus closely, seeing him not as a tool or symbol, but as a person. "You stood when others might have fled," Solara said. "You protected my daughter." Marcus nodded respectfully. "She protected us too." Solara paused, then inclined her head slightly. "Then we are in your debt." The Varkol threat did not disappear completely. But they did not return. They had learned something new. Some civilizations grew stronger through unity, not domination. Years passed. Illyra did not take the throne immediately. She chose instead to travel between worlds, serving as a bridge. She listened. She learned. She helped resolve conflicts before they became wars. Humans called her a diplomat. Lyseri called her a reformer. Some called her a leader. Queen Solara ruled differently now. She questioned her own instincts. She allowed dissent. She learned to listen. One evening, Solara and Illyra stood together once more, watching the city lights below. "You were never weak," Solara said quietly. "I simply did not understand your strength." Illyra reached for her mother's hand. "Now you do." Solara squeezed it gently. Far beyond Lyceria, among the stars, new alliances formed. Old enemies hesitated. Stories spread of a princess once cast aside, of humans once underestimated, and of a queen who learned too late, but not too late to change. And in that shared future, forged not by force but by understanding, humanity stood tall among the stars, not as conquerors, but as equals.